Okay, hello everyone, you're very welcome. Austin's just going to give an introduction here of what we'll be talking about and maybe why we're here.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Niall. So thank you all, and we'll be expecting some more to be coming through as class and office hours come to completion for today. So it's our pleasure on behalf of the new Engineering Society of TUS, one of their many events that they have planned for this year and also for forthcoming years, to have invited Dr. Niall Burke, a seasoned academic lecturer and researcher, to give a talk about Bitcoin innovation, incentives, and impact. And it is a very, very topical area. Some of us, including myself, have a little bit of an idea about it. But in terms of the real practice and really what it means, I'm very much eagerly waiting to hear what Niall actually has to advise us and tell us all so that we'll be able to pick up on it. And I believe actually, Niall, it is a serious, perhaps pillar of not only ongoing current research, which you're involved with, but maybe that the broader community themselves would also perhaps maybe spark that little bit of interest in order maybe to start building on what has already been created here. So Niall, on behalf of the School of Engineering, the Engineering Society, thank you very much.
Hello, you're very, very welcome here this evening. To kick off, I'm just going to say that my speciality in this area is in energy, engineering, mechanical engineering. I had a sort of an interest in the Bitcoin side of things, and that evolved when I figured out the energy side of it into combining the two. So I feel a little lucky to be in the position of understanding this and the technology and how it's developed. Where it's come a long way, and I just want to be part of that process and be able to show Ireland the way for it as well. Okay. So in terms of just kicking off, we say knowledge discovery. For us, when we figure things out, we need to build confidence in that. And conviction on any subject is built on knowledge, experience, observations. And ultimately, you come to the truth of situations. So that's what I want, that context of how your mind is for this, is open your mind to the possibility of it. The purpose of this talk then is seeing Ireland from its growth in renewables. With that growth of renewable energy, you're seeing an awful lot of mismatching between supply and demand. So it's not a perfect supply to our demands for electricity. So there's mismatches and it creates a lot of surplus energy. In the case here, it's potentially going to lead to around half a billion euros worth of waste energy by 2030 with our development. So the question I'm asking is, can Bitcoin mining turn this problem into an opportunity? Key questions then: what is surplus energy? Why does surplus energy exist? And why is it a problem? What can Bitcoin mining do as a flexible energy consumer? And how do other countries integrate mining into their grids? So, what are other countries doing and where are we in the broader context of using this technology? Going to finish up then with a look at the regulatory and financial constraints in Ireland to this. At the core of our economy, though, is energy, and coordinating its use is key, and the tool to that is money. So I'm just going to delve a little bit into what money is. This is a topic that I think people find very, intuitively they understand what money is, but it's not something we really talk about. But money facilitates the coordination of economic activity between people's energy expenditure, aka work. The work we do is put into a value in money terms. So the best money is scarce, durable, portable, divisible. Not a word I use very often, but fungible and verifiable. So that's what money should be. Bitcoin tries to be all of those things. That's what it was designed to be, is the ultimate in money. Historically, societies have transitioned from barter as a means to facilitate that trade in energy, in work, to gold, to fiat money, physical cash, and then onto digital money, which we have now. Our euro is generally digital, although any Germans around, they tend to like the physical cash way more than the digital, and it's still a thing, and maybe rightly so. Bitcoin, though, was designed to embody all of these principles and moving into the digital sphere. So energy then in the economy is kind of the next step. Is what does it do? And I want to set the tone for Bitcoin in that and how it works before we get into the renewable energy side of things. So energy is civilization's foundation. Societies that efficiently harness energy thrive. Today, the challenge isn't producing energy, it's using it effectively. So you can see this chart, and a lot of people would have, maybe in the Bitcoin side of things, would see this and know this one, but this might be something that is worth pondering a bit, is the relationship between our energy use and our GDP, our a value to the economy. There's no such thing as a low energy rich country. You know, there just simply isn't. We use energy and we get the rewards for that. So access to energy leads to higher wages. Is it that simple? Well, we need to understand exactly what energy is before we can delve into that. So what is energy? Energy is defined as the ability to do work or cause movement. So work is an energy, but it's just moving something. You know, think of energy. Energy is just a force moving something. So we look to energy in that regard. We say it is able to do something for us. And that's what we contextualize it as broadly, as a concept, as an idea. In reality, then, it's mechanical energy, it's thermal energy, it's electrical energy, it's all these different forms of energy. But ultimately, they're doing work, they're performing work. So work is a forced movement of a physical mass. Energy is equal to work. We define that as the embodiment of that idea. But then we use it, we use energy, and the use of it is power, and power is energy over time. So it's joules of energy or kilowatt hours of energy per second. It's over time. So for example, here, an electric vehicle can consume 15 kilowatts of electricity driving for 2 hours. And in that time, it's used 30 kilowatt hours of energy. The broader concept of energy then can be understood from the idea of where we get our renewable energy from. So Ireland has a consumption of about 180 terawatt hours per annum of energy. Quite a small amount, reasonable amount. But if you compare then the world of energy of 170,000 terawatt hours per annum for the world in energy consumption, it's only about 0.1% of the solar energy we get. So we still have a huge amount to go in terms of our ability to convert what is an abundant renewable resource into actual physical work that we can utilize. Euro consumption can be understood as the basic needs of food and shelter, and it's about 4,700 kilowatt hours per annum. That's you just eating and living in a warm environment. What we actually consume in Ireland, and just broadly, remember that graph, we were saying the amount of energy we use, broadly in line with the rest of the modern world, is about 38,000 kilowatt hours per annum. It's the equivalent of 8 people working for you. And that's energy to prosper. We're prospering because of that energy resource that we're utilizing. So never get into the idea of using too much energy. We're using all the energy we can and more if we can, because it's all good. Where it comes from, you might start questioning, but the energy use itself is good, is a good idea. For anyone that is an old school horsepower, I like the idea of the horsepower because it's 1 horsepower is 1 horse working for 8 hours. Its ability to work, lift water out of a well for 8 hours straight. 1 horsepower is about 4 human powers. So think of a 100 horsepower car, 100 horses working for you. It's 400 people working for you when you're driving your car. Now, it doesn't last for very long. Most of the time, you don't drive that much, really. But you have numerous amount of people working for you in driving a car, and that's where that energy gets consumed. It's all helping us prosper. So then we get to this is the most important one, I think, is that when we get to use energy, it's because of freedoms. We're allowed or able to use energy. We have the freedom to access and use energy, which develops technologies, which enables the prosperity. So the prosperity index goes with freedom index. Not absolutely, but there is a link. We get to be free, we get to use energy, we get to prosper. So keep that in mind then when we look at new technologies and how we can become more efficient with our energy use. A couple of things to cover before we get into the more detailed renewable bit is some key concepts. So some renewable sources have no cost-effective route to the grid and are called stranded energy. If you think of methane from landfill gas, it's there, it emits into the environment, it's not good, it's a very high climate change substance. So it's not good, but the only thing is it's not very cost effective to change it into anything usable, more usable energy. Bitcoin mining is doing it because it can be done anywhere, but just generally think of stranded energy as not economic to use. Grid-connected wind and solar that are utilised, that are developed, are intermittent, so they don't come on and off when you want them. They supply it whenever the wind blows or the sun shines. So they're called non-dispatchable. You can't dispatch them to meet the demand that you have, leading to supply volatility, undersupply and oversupply. The oversupply we refer to as surplus energy. So surplus energy is excess energy generated beyond which the grid can absorb or store. Renewable generation is deliberately dispatched down is the term for it. It's turned off by the grid operator, the transmission grid operator, because the grid can't handle the excess supply, specifically due to two reasons. Curtailment is when there is simply too much energy on the grid and not enough demand. And the second one is constraints, where the grid infrastructure cannot take the electricity that's going through it. So if you think of a wind farm out the west of Ireland, it might have very poor grid infrastructure to be able to get it back up to Dublin, for example, where it will get utilised. So those are the two ways energy is reduced and becomes surplus energy on a wind farm or solar farm. So Ireland's target is to get to 80% renewable electricity by 2030. That's the target. Whether it achieves it is not quite sure whether it will, but that's the government's target. At the moment, we're at 40%, 40+%. So we need to double it in the next 5 years. The projected surplus we'll get from that is about 20%. So currently it's about 10% of all of that wind and solar is curtailed, is dispatched down, and it'll grow to 20% because of the fact that there's not enough demand for a growing amount of surplus energy. That's potentially then 500 million or €500 million per year in terms of lost revenue, at about €50 per megawatt hour. In energy terms, that could be about 5 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's quite cheap still. But the thing is, if it's not utilised now, it has zero value, whereas this is trying to give it a little bit of value. Why can't we store it? Well, we can do grid batteries, we can do pumped hydro, we can do hydrogen generation, but they're all very small solutions to the overall big picture problem. Bitcoin miners actively seek this low-cost surplus renewable energy for reasons explained. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is not just digital money, it's an energy-backed monetary network. Mining converts electricity into digital scarcity, into Bitcoin, and it secures the transactions of this without any intermediaries. So there's nobody in charge of this network. It's an IP. It's the equivalent of an IP. So Bitcoin is a decentralized digital monetary network secured by energy consumption. Work is the energy it consumes. It has a fixed supply. So remember this scarcity element I said about good money. It has a fixed supply that cannot be changed. 21 million Bitcoin is only the total amount that's going to be out there. 19.6 million of which has already been put out into the world. The market cap at the moment is 1.5 trillion. So it is a serious asset as it is at the moment. If you want to compare it to gold, gold is about 18 trillion. So it's not quite gold, but it's there and growing. Bitcoin's transactions are stored on a blockchain. You've all probably heard the word blockchain. It's just simply the information is stored in blocks, and that block is developed and stored in a decentralized way, decentralized network without any centralized authority. This worldwide ledger then is described as triple entry bookkeeping, so it's multiple places holding this information. I think it's said is 3 things are certain in life: debt, taxes, and 21 million Bitcoin. Takeaway there is 21 million Bitcoin will never be changed. That is what the total is going to be forever. How can I say that? Well, I can't say it in total 100% belief that that is the case. It can change. The Bitcoin network can change. The chance of it happening is so remote, though, because it takes a huge amount of consensus to do that, which there is none. So Bitcoin has rules. It has no rulers. Bitcoin operates on an open source protocol. It's like the internet, the IP, TCP, or web browser protocols. It's just a benign piece of information that everyone shares and agrees with. You can try building your own Bitcoin, and you can do that, but you need people to participate with you on that new network. And if no one does, it has no value. And that's why Bitcoin will and has remained and will remain and growing. The protocol then conveys information. That's all it's doing. A public ledger, dispersed amongst thousands of nodes around the world. A little bit of the detail on the blockchain side of things that's worth contemplating here is the blockchain trilemma. Blockchain systems face trade-offs when trying to achieve 3 key properties. Scalability is it can grow in transactions. Security is it is as secure as possible, and then decentralization. You can only have 2 out of these 3 in any blockchain. You can have it scale, you can have it secure, and you can have it decentralized, but you can only have 2 of them. So Bitcoin has gone over its lifetime onto 2 of them. And it's about security, and it's the energy side of things that secures it, which we'll talk about in more detail. And the decentralization is these nodes all around the world that are ensuring that the protocol is adhered to. Scalability is the one that suffers, and the scalability is that the transactions only occur once every 10 minutes or so, in around 10 minutes. And the amount of data that it can transact in each block is very low. But for now, it works, and all of the scaling issues have been transcended into the secondary network, which is the Lightning Network, which operates like Visa, et cetera, and does transactions at the same scale and speed. Not as secure, though. The Lightning Network is not as secure. It's smart contracts between people, but it's a scaling solution that I think people are most comfortable with. And Bitcoin has solidified around this idea. Okay, so why Bitcoin needs energy? Miners hash or guess a number. So the protocol puts out a number every 10 minutes, every time a block has been released, and it's up to miners to hash or guess. A miner is a computer that just simply guesses numbers constantly. It hashes until it gets the right number. And Bitcoin has set itself up in a way that the difficulty allows, so no matter how much you scale up the amount of hashing that goes on in the network, it'll only ever produce a block every 10 minutes. So it's always every 2 weeks, it'll readjust to make sure that every 10 minutes the block is released. So it's not the same as, say, gold, for example. If gold price goes up, you get an incentive to go mine more gold, and it can tend to bring the price back down again. You have more gold coming in. With Bitcoin mining, it doesn't matter. The same amount of Bitcoin is released every 10 minutes. At the moment, the block reward that you get for guessing correctly, roughly every 10 minutes, is 3.125 Bitcoin, plus transaction fees. And over time, that's going to reduce. Every 4 years, it reduces by half. So it starts off at 50 every 10 minutes, and then 25, 12.5, 6.25, down to 3. And it'll eventually, 2140, it'll go to 0 Bitcoin output. But bear in mind, of the 21 million Bitcoin, 19.6 has already been issued. What it'll do though is it'll flip the transactions will become the way miners will make money rather than the Bitcoin block reward into the future. So we've just gone through a halving, and it's another 3.5 years before it'll halve again. Okay, miners then guess they convert this energy into computational work, and that's referred to as proof of work. Remember back to energy being work. Well, proof of work is just a concept to say that a miner has done something to deserve this participation on the network. Yeah. So they're part of the network, they get their pro rata share of the network and the rewards of that network. Proof of work then converts electrical energy into network security. So it's secured in the back of this energy, and it's secured against attack. Bitcoin transactions then are validated. So the miner does this work, they get to put blocks together and they get the reward. All that goes into that block is validated by nodes. Nodes are thousands, I think 20,000 nodes around the world on simple basic computers that just runs and agrees with each block as it comes out. So node consensus then ensures the network is trustless with no reliance on any external authority. Again, it's a benign thing, Bitcoin. No one owns it. It's everybody's, and it may have political alignments in some ways, but it has none of its own accord. Bitcoin security and storage. I've thrown this up, not the most important part of this, but it is something to bear in mind that Bitcoin is stored in wallets, and it's a wallet that has private keys. These keys are 12 or 24 words. It's changed, a string of code changed into 12 or 24 words. So essentially, your Bitcoin can be on in 12 words. That's how you can store it, and you can make those values up by using a dice if you wanted to, and write it on a piece of paper. They're held on cold wallets or hot wallets, on your phone or on these devices that are just kept offline for security. But if you don't have the keys, if the keys are not yours, you don't own the Bitcoin. And it's an issue then where if you have your Bitcoin on exchanges or even in ETFs that are a big thing now, you don't own it. You have a participation in it, but you don't actually own it if anything happens. The only way to really own it is own the keys. Okay, energy. Bitcoin mining is one of the cleanest large-scale industries out there at the moment, with over 55% of the energy coming from sustainable sources, and a number that continues to grow based on what we're revealing here. The global demand is about 20 gigawatts, and in context of Ireland, it's about 4 times the size of Ireland in terms of energy consumption. I think of 55% is from renewable, sustainable sources and growing. And my talk here is about getting Ireland into that network, that benign network, and utilising it with renewable energy to enhance both the network and the renewable energies. So bear in mind that miners seek cheap energy. They want to do this work, but at as low a cost as possible. Often then they come from stranded, zero cost energy or surplus renewables. So miners convert this electrical energy into computational work, which then dissipates as low-grade heat. There's opportunity there to use that energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed, just changes from one form to another. So you've done the work with it to hash, to guess. You have the Bitcoin reward, but you have low-grade heat, 80 degrees Celsius. And that's, again, another derivative of this that could be utilized. And is one example is in Finland, they're using Bitcoin miners from their hydro, and they have, I think it's something like 2% of their district heating in Finland is from Bitcoin mining now. So you have that double use of it as well. If you have a low-grade heat requirement, if it's already utilizing electrical energy for that, and this makes it perfect synergy. Other things that can be done though, as simple processing or just drying can be done with this low-grade heat. A lot of changes going on in the area of this. You can see the headlines are beginning to shift when they're realizing this unique opportunity for the technology. Bitcoin in Ireland has a strong base of holders, believe it or not, particularly among young adults. Many renewable energy companies, though, have shown interest. And again, I come from a background of 20 years of being in renewable energy. I'm talking about graduates that have come through, and I've talked to them about this whole area. Very interested, but are hesitant due to Bitcoin's image. And I'd hate to think we miss out on something because of an image problem rather than a technical problem. So with ETFs, pension schemes, and sovereign wealth funds now holding Bitcoin, the global narrative has shifted. It's shifted really rapidly. Countries worldwide are integrating Bitcoin into their energy strategies too. And this is where we see the hashing, that guessing, has been growing rapidly every year. 20 gigawatts of hashing goes into the network right now. And ultimately, that 20 gigawatts of hashing is a security. And if you think there are huge companies now that are mining very professionally in this area with thousands of megawatts of power, it's a full-on industry right now. It's not a garage type thing. It was once, but it's no longer the case now. It is a very big industry. You have countries that are mining. Bhutan as a nation is mining, and they give the dividends of that to their people. Loads of movement there. You do see the price of Bitcoin though, and the hash rate does correlate with it to some degree. As the price of Bitcoin goes up, you get more people participating on the network. But the rate of output every 10 minutes, Bitcoin doesn't change. So you're chasing a smaller amount, you're getting a smaller cut of the pie as the hash rate goes up. But you factor that into your sums. So mining revenue then for current ASICs, or application-specific integrated circuits, very basic chips that just do one job, get their hashing. Those new ASICs would give you revenues of up to 130 euro per megawatt hour. So 13 cents per kilowatt hour is what they would deliver for you. Now, if you're doing that at home and using electricity, that's 30 cents per kilowatt hour. It's not going to be very cost effective to do it. But if you have stranded energy, renewable energy, very cheap energy, it works well there. Older ASICs would have revenues very low, 10 euro per megawatt hour. But could be there to fill the void if there's nothing else. If it's completely stranded, you might as well get 10 euro per megawatt hour rather than nothing. The revenue then is based on the Bitcoin price, the block reward, 3.125, plus transaction fees, the difficulty of the network, and the global hash rate that's out there. It's also to do with the efficiency of the ASICs, these computers as well. So the key characteristics then of Bitcoin mining is it's deployable on-site with basic internet. Doesn't need much internet to have your connectivity to the network. And it generates revenue instantly. So, one of the things we're talking about in Ireland is increasing our offshore wind. And one of the major hurdles to that is getting it all connected really quickly when it gets up deployed. Not an easy task. With this, you could have mining going on the very second that wind turbine is up in the sea. You can be mining with it. So miners then can relocate, pivot to maybe AI, high-performance computing as demand grows. Another area is that in data centers in Ireland, they're not very flexible. This type of system is very flexible. It can turn on and off instantly. It doesn't take time to turn on and off. So if the transmission system operator says you must turn off, they can do it instantly. No problem. Data centers can't do that. They have to wind down slowly, shifting data. In terms of mining revenue, so we talk about that 3.125 Bitcoin over 6 times, so 6 tens in an hour, 6 to 10 minute intervals at around 80 euro per coin, divided by 20,000 megawatt hours, so 20 gigawatts run for 1 hour. That's the euro per megawatt hour value of mining at the moment. It's around 75 euro per megawatt hour. So that's average value. So if you can generate more than that, you're going to you're doing well. Okay, so Bitcoin is a flexible energy buyer. It's location independent, can be done anywhere, and it follows price signals. It runs when the energy is cheap and shuts off when expensive. It can co-locate with wind, solar, hydro, or any surplus or stranded capacity. Provides instant shutdown capability, so it helps stabilize grids. It's allowing for that demand response. Is an example then of using the mining revenue for the best miners out there. It's giving an idea maybe around €100 per megawatt hour, which is about a 14 billion euro per year industry. So what can it do? It can be grid balancing. Then Bitcoin miners can get paid to shut down during peak demand. It's a key aspect of ancillary services to say when the grid is coming under pressure, the TSO, the transmission operator says, shut down, curtail, dispatch down. You do it. Wind turbines will do it. On the supply side, if it's oversupply, but on the undersupply, you can be asked to stop your demand. And miners can facilitate that. They can instantly turn off. Surplus energy has been utilised in Iceland, Norway, Canada, using hydro and geothermal. Bitcoin mining absorbs excess energy, providing instant monetization when needed. And it's doing so in Texas, in the USA, which is a grid very similar to Ireland in terms of its renewable makeup, but it has no taxpayer funding to it at all. It's simply it's a free market. So you have a huge amount of renewables on that grid, and mining is playing its part in monetizing those and making them cost effective. The miner's trilemma is that you have, potential to raise capital, secure mining equipment, and secure energy. But when the cost of one goes up, the others go down. So it's trying to balance all of those different things. The cost of capital can go up. It may mean that the equipment cost will come down, etc., etc. But it's all a balancing. The key takeaway, though, for Bitcoin is that it's not just digital gold, but an economic tool for monetizing surplus energy. Think of the security it has, and it has 16 years of operational capacity, and it grows stronger every year. We can explore then how mining can be utilized in the Irish grid. So a national electric grid is kept operational by four means. A flexible power generation, first one. Flexibility is a key aspect. In Ireland, it's becoming less flexible based on the growth of the renewable technologies. Can't turn them on. If you don't have flexibility, then you have alternatives to be able to allow for that. You allow for it by having intergrid transmission. So it's going between the UK and Ireland and France and Ireland. Currently, it's about 1.5 gigawatts. So think of 4 or 5 gigawatts, what our demand is. 1.5 gigawatts can come from the UK or from France. Energy storage, you can build up energy and then use it really rapidly to overcome any peaks that you might have using hydro batteries and hydrogen. They're very short-term solutions, so you can't store up for weeks in this regard. Batteries, 8 hours would be the absolute maximum you can store for it. So it's not a real solution for the future for flexibility. Demand side management, though, is the one that we would be most interested in. And Bitcoin mining helps here. So just going back to the renewable energy and generation of electricity in Ireland. The government targets 80% by 2030. We're at 40% at the moment. We want to go to 80%. This requires our 4.9 gigawatts of renewables to go to 22 gigawatts by 2030. Renewables have a poor derated capacity. What that means is it can't be turned on and off. So how reliable is it when you really need it? So when we really need energy is between 5 and 7 in the evening. That's when our peak demand is. And how reliable is it, these technologies at that time? Solar has a very poor derated capacity because it's just not that sunny at that time of the day. So they're not reliable from that perspective. But they still supply energy and we can still utilize it, but they're not flexible. So for us to do a 2-time growth in the renewable energy share, it requires a 5x growth in the renewable generation capacity. So to double our energy supply, we need to 5x our generation capacity. All doable, it's all possible. It just needs to be done in a way that doesn't raise the cost of everything for us. So how we mitigate the costs of all of these technologies coming onto the grid is the Renewable Energy Support Scheme. The government guarantees up to €100 per megawatt hour. Curtailment comes in that. In the latest RES schemes, they give money to curtailment. So when they're told to turn off, they get paid that money. Not an ideal scenario because there's no encouragement there to actually do anything with it. They're given the money regardless of the incentive. The incentive is not there to do anything. But the thing is, though, I suppose you have a scenario where they have it's called a CFD, contract for difference. And what it means is that if the price of electricity goes above 100, the government gets back the extra, the excess. If it goes below 100, then they top it up. And they try to make it cost neutral, so the government aren't paying for it, taxpayers aren't paying for it. But it generally tends towards more payment than getting back. Excess top-ups then are passed on to the consumer via the PSO levy you might see in the bills. Bitcoin mining then must fit in with this model to be viable. It just has to work within the system. By integrating mining into flexible markets, Ireland could reduce energy waste, stabilise grid revenues, and lower consumer costs. So I talk about the wind energy generation for Ireland. It's going to go up to, so 22 is the total for all the renewables. But for wind energy in particular, it's looking at 12 gigawatts or 12,000 megawatts by 2030. This yellow line then is looking at the dispatch down that's going to come. So at the moment, it's about 10%, and potential to go to 20% based on a simple linear line. We know that the more you put onto the grid, the more curtailment is going to happen. You're going to have more oversupply. Bear in mind that Ireland's demand is about here. So you think we're just at that cusp of supplying just about the right amount to our demand. And once we go above that, you're going to have a lot more surplus energy coming from that. At time, not all the time, but it's going to happen. How do we deal with it? What's the plan? Well, the plan is to a certain degree is demand side management, where we reduce overall demand. It's called, trying to incentivize people to reduce their demand for electricity during peak times. Smart meters is part of that. Having policy efficiency and behavioural changes is part of that. Examples are installation of homes off-peak tariffs, etc. Demand response then is a shorter term way to change the demand requirements, and it shifts loads at peak times. So you're trying to shift it from the 5 to 7 to 7 to 9, get people to shift their idea of when to use energy. It's done via price signals and incentives, straight out incentives. Smart tech comes in there as well. This is the way it would be done on a daily basis. You might see that blue line is, the green line would be a typical energy demand. You might say that's what people want. And during that peak time, you run the potential to have blackouts if your renewables, natural gas, and imports on the grid, and peaker plants, so these gas turbines that just come on to give you that peak supply. Well, if you haven't enough of that to meet the demand, you get blackouts. So despite demand response then is about trying to reduce down that demand down to that blue line, where you just you alleviate the requirement for peaker plants. Bitcoin mining can be part of this too. So you can reduce down that demand from the green line to the blue line by turning off the miners. The miners it could be price signals, or it could be straight out cost incentives to do so. But they're there, and they reduce the need for peaker plants. So peaker plants are expensive to put in. They're not run very often. They shouldn't be run very often. So they're kind of expensive backups to have. Mining is going to be working very often, very efficiently. doing the same thing. This is an example then of Bitcoin mining on the Texas grid during a storm they had. And they've set a limit to the price of electricity at $9,000 per megawatt hour. It's like, can't go any higher. But it could. You can see there, this black line, as it reached that threshold where they just simply did not have enough power generation capacity to meet the demand. This line here is Bitcoin miners. They would set their value where they turn off. So the very second the price of electricity goes above that blue line, instantly turn off. Their demand response is they no longer are part of the demand for electricity. They're no longer an issue. So you think the more miners you can have on the grid, soaking up all of this electricity that is off peak, not fully required, not fully demanded, and then they turn off the very second the system comes under strain. Bitcoin mining in Ireland, then, this is as crude as it gets. We have wind energy producing, so we have mechanical energy, rotating blades, producing electricity, and that electricity can either go to the grid, or you have renewable energy payments. You might have corporate PPAs, power purchase agreements. That's fine, you can do all that stuff, or you can send it to Bitcoin mining. And you can also have payments for ancillary services for that demand response, turning off when the system is under stress. Or you can have a combination of both. And either one of them is going to give you euro revenue. So you can not touch Bitcoin if you don't want to. You just simply, the very second you generate it, you change it over to euros. And that's it. It's nothing more than that, nothing less. Bitcoin acts then as a flexible, always available energy buyer. So it's there no matter what. It will buy it whenever you want to sell it. This is an idea of, it's called the day ahead market, the wholesale electricity prices last year for the whole year. And you can see the variation, huge variation in the value of electricity. So the day before, there'll be an auction for selling electricity onto the grid. But you can see an awful lot around zero. See all the dots around zero creeping down there. That's simply because there's a lot of wind energy on the grid, and they're all putting their electricity onto the grid the next day. When they all go on, if there's 5 gigawatts required demand and there's 5 gigawatts of wind, or there's 6 gigawatts of wind, or whatever, it means there's an oversupply, and the price of that electricity goes to zero. That line, that blue line, then is a revenue for mining. So that 130 euro per megawatt hour. So anything below that line is going to give you value from mining. Okay, when the price goes above that, you turn off the mining. You no longer mine. Not as simple as that, but you get a picture there of what's the opportunity. You pick up the slack for the prices there, though. You know, as a taxpayer or a ratepayer of electricity, you're paying for that topping up to the 100 euro. And below the 100. So this is an opportunity to make it more cost effective. Also then, if you think of new renewable projects, they're slightly de-incentivized from participating or investing in these in renewables, because they're kind of given the worst of the situation where, when it comes to dispatching renewables, they'll be told to turn off first. So they will be curtailed first. So there's no huge advantage now to building a new wind farm, because you'll be told to turn off more than the other participants. It's not supposed to be that way, but I think in practicality, that's the way it works. So we want to change that and make sure that everyone gets fairly remunerated for their projects. The barriers to this, and there's one key one, it's private wires. There's direct connections to renewables are currently unlawful on-site, behind the meter. It means that the electricity that's generated on a wind farm has to go out onto the grid and then back in again and take on the charges that come with that. So behind the meter will save about 30 euro per megawatt hour. So it goes from being viable to non-viable by having this restriction. Now this is the case for hydrogen production, for batteries as well. It should be anyway. I know there's batteries in operation on sites, but they're meant to go out onto the grid and back in again. They're not meant to have private wires going from the wind farm to whatever facility there is on site. That's changing. The government have said that they're going to change it, but it needs to happen pretty rapidly for all of these technologies to be utilised. So Ireland should allow private wires to create tailored electricity pricing frameworks. This work we're doing here is part of an ongoing research exploring the impact of increasing renewable energy on the grid, focusing on curtailment, stability, and economic feasibility. This study then is investigating alternative solutions to taxpayer and ratepayer funded methods for managing surplus energy, with a particular emphasis then on the potential role of Bitcoin mining. That is the key to this. It's just trying to make it as cost effective as possible. I'm a big fan of renewable energy. My feelings are that it's the minds of people are changing a lot on it, that they're feeling as if they're paying too much for the electricity. And I think it's a fair comment and a fair conversation to be had, and I think this should be part of the solution to bring down that cost. Okay, so Bitcoin's energy is used to drive positive changes in renewable and grid stability. And it has done and it's proven to do so in many other jurisdictions. I want Ireland to be taking this very seriously as an opportunity. Future innovation in Bitcoin will continue at the intersection of energy, finance, and technology. From that context, I would say, I'll throw it out there that I think within 5 years, the majority of energy trading across borders will be done via Bitcoin. So we don't understand change, especially exponential change, but that is a change that's coming. And we want to be part of that. And I think we need to be cognizant of that. Without policy reform, Ireland will miss this opportunity then to create jobs, attract sustainable development, and help stabilise the grid. And I ask, what is stopping us? Okay. Thank you very much. There are a few questions that people asked. I don't know if any of you have any other questions. Anyone else? There's some online questions. Yeah.
Basically, the mining, the basic foundation of mining is that Bitcoins operate on the proof of work concept. So there are new blockchains which are coming up and technological innovations like proof of stake or proof of authority. So with these new innovations, how do you think the trends in mining would change?
I suppose the question is key to like, what do you want as a blockchain technology? Do you want it decentralized?
No, like with the new innovations, like
okay.
blockchains were based on proof of work. Now there are blockchains which are working on proof of stake and proof of authority, which consume much less electricity and energy. So with this kind of innovations, would the mining go down, or like what trends do you think?
You're asking people to accept those blockchain technologies as
But
being.
it gets accepted more.
If it happens, that's fine. It hasn't worked that way though. A lot of the new blockchains that have come about have failed and fallen away. What they say they're going to do, they end up not doing. Whereas Bitcoin has continued to grow based on the fact that proof of work is something you can understand and go. When you have a central authority over a blockchain and you're trying to store value in it, it's a dangerous, you feel as if you have a connection to those people. Whereas with Bitcoin, it's an internet protocol. It's a money protocol, so it's no one owns it. People can invest in it a little easier, and that, in terms of the usability of blockchains, yeah, there's huge scope. I mean, Bitcoin is allowing smart contracts onto them, and especially with the Lightning Network, you're getting more of that integration of the technologies that have come through, and Ethereum and stuff like that. So it's kind of soaking up all of that stuff onto this network. And look, I personally, the rest is all going to fall away. but don't take that as any kind of advice. That's my belief. But you have the same potential to come to that conclusion yourself. That's my belief. I think Bitcoin is the only one with any value that's out there. Even the stable coins, there's use for them in poor countries, because they might have a very terrible currency. But even then, you're going to have that fall away over time because the Lightning Network is going to be the place where people have their currencies. It's all going to fall away eventually. The dollar will fall away eventually. They'll all fall away. And Bitcoin will be what's left. The question here, do you think Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general will ever replace the euro? Yes, but I mean, will it happen? I don't know. But I would strongly think it is going to eventually. Again, we don't understand change and what happens. We don't see the boiling frog. We don't see the heating up. You might understand the heating up, but you don't realize what's causing it. One example is house prices. We don't realize that that's a currency problem, not a demand problem. It's the fact that there's too much money being produced and not enough work behind it. So we aren't filling the void of the new money with work produced with it. So we have more money chasing fewer things, and house prices is just part of that. People are parking their money, that excess money, in housing, which is wrong. Shouldn't be saving. Houses should not be money, which is what it's been turned into.
We do say that you think central bank are interested to get control. How do you decentralize?
I think, well, they're never going to centralize it. So Bitcoin is always going to be a decentralized phenomenon.
To use something that's not controlled.
Well, they can go against it, absolutely, and they do. I mean, China tried it. Even on the energy side of things, they tried it, and they realized now that actually it's got utility. Yeah, look, it's not going to be without issues, and I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm just going, that's my belief, but don't take it as advice. It's actually, yeah. Bear in mind that's it. Yeah, I get that, but anything that's been adopted has volatility, and it's been adopted from a very low base. And what you have is people who participate on the network, and the ones that fully understand it don't feel the volatility. The people who are just in and trying to trade in it don't realize its value and will be in and out and shocked and sell, and you get all that stuff. But that's going to come. Volatility is part of an adoption process, and I can't say to you it's going to go up in a smooth line. Wouldn't you love it if it was like, yeah. So people's behavior is part of this, like euphoria and panic, and all that comes into it. But if you look at the trend, I'll go back to the price. If you look at that trend, it's slowly but surely, and it's all to do with the network effect. There's a network of growing adoption worldwide. How can Bitcoin take over traditional banks? Would the government ever give up control of the banks? No, there's no incentive for them to give that up. Willingly, no incentive. But this is, I don't know if you ever study Hayek and his economic theories, is you need to take this out of their hands slowly but surely in a kind of sneaky way. And this is the way it's been done. It's growing slowly and it's already out of their control. There's no way to control this anymore. So now you either go with it, which is what America's kind of doing and saying, let's go with this tide, or you go against it. I'll put you, think of China went against the gold standard and went on the silver standard, and it destroyed their country for 100 years. So don't go with a standard that is, don't dig your heels in and go against something that's building. How do you see the future of European countries progressing with Bitcoin mining? It's not great. To be honest, our electricity prices are very high. It's very hard to make that clear-cut, no-brainer, this works. Texas, it worked perfectly because the differences between not mining and mining was stark. Whereas in Ireland, because of all the money you're given to not do anything about it, you don't have to. You're given the payment regardless. But you can still make a little bit of a premium on it. There still is room there, but yeah, we don't have the same incentives in Europe. We're a little bit risk averse to all of these things, and it then leads to lack of innovation. And that's, I think, something that's happening across. I think that's what they're trying to address at the moment. And we say this is one element of that lack of innovative idea. That belief that you can progress things, holding on to what you own, like it's a conservative thing. But you need to be able to let go of that and take risks with things, with everything you do. Going to college, changing jobs, you name it, it's all risks, but it's all part of the growth. It's not an area I'm an expert on either. That's just my thinking on it. But from the energy perspective, this is rock solid technology. Where it goes to, who knows? It's not going to die. It's going to be part of the energy sphere for a long, long time. Whether it grows into the sovereign sphere, who knows? I can't. I would say yes personally, but couldn't say for definite. Quantum computing may affect Bitcoin, yes, but it'll affect everything. Quantum computing, it'll break down every algorithm. But there's fixes you can do to the protocol that will enhance that. The US are adopting it, yeah. El Salvador adopting it, yeah. It's all slowly but surely creeping. What can academics do to better inform society about its potential? I don't know. I think it's just talking about it like this, and having an open discussion, being less kind of intimidated by it, I think. Yeah, the rest are kind of Web3 and programming. That's not my side of things. So I'm going to answer that. Any other questions? All good. I don't know if, no. Okay. Thank you very much for coming.
Well, yeah, that's nice. I don't know. I mean, busy time here. Most of the day, I know after that, the class as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
How we get to